Unlike this hotel, the online platforms such as Airbnb and others do not have to collect VAT. That gives the online economy an edge over the real-world rivals. To resolve this, the EU recently approved new rules for the VAT in the digital age. eu-decoded checks how this will affect the bottom line for short-time rentals and ride-hailing services.
The EU wants to level the playing field on VAT for tourist accommodation and chauffeur-driven car transport. Online platforms such as Airbnb, Uber and Bolt will need to collect VAT just as other businesses do. That could amount to as much as 25%, and the rule would apply from 2030.
But when new taxes squeeze company profits, it's often the customer that ends up paying a higher price. So let's see what some people in Brussels and in Athens think of this idea.
Τα Airbnb κατά συντριπτική πλειοψηφία τα κατέχουν ξένοι. Από ό,τι έχω δει και στο εξωτερικό αυτό το πράγμα έχει συμβεί. Δηλαδή σε χώρες των Βαλκανίων βλέπεις Airbnb τα οποία τα έχουν περισσότερο ξένοι. Στην ουσία όλα αυτά τα λεφτά φεύγουν έξω από τη χώρα. Θα πρέπει να υπάρχει μια ίση μεταχείριση.
Σίγουρα θα βοηθήσει το ελληνικό κράτος μια υψηλή φορολόγηση στον Airbnb. Από την άλλη θα αποθάρρυνε την είσοδο τουριστών. Προσωπικά πιστεύω ότι θα πρέπει να έχουμε μια IVA φορολογία, δηλαδή ούτε αρκετά υψηλή ούτε αρκετά χαμηλή.
I think it could put people off travelling, so yeah, I think that would be quite impactful.
It makes it fair if they have to do it as well. Because we're paying it in hotels, so why shouldn't you pay it with an Airbnb? And the money is raised helps the protection of the city and keeps it clean and makes the tourist attractions more attractive.
It'll either force Airbnb providers to lower their prices a little bit, or the demand will go down, I guess.
Jack Schickler will help us decode the new rules. So the online companies themselves will collect VAT, not the service providers such as landlords of apartments or car drivers. Why is that?
On platforms like Airbnb, you have a large online platform, Airbnb itself, where actually a lot of the services are technically supplied by very small-scale landlords, people renting a spare room or renting an apartment. And on Uber, similarly, you've got lots of drivers who possibly aren't earning a huge amount of money, don't have to register for VAT, or they're a little bit of a legal grey area whether they need to register for the VAT. So the European Commission came along and said, hang on, you've got these big, often US platforms selling services, raising tens of billions, hundreds of billions in revenues, and they're not paying VAT, while they're also competing against a lot of companies that do have to pay VAT.
But some member states were not very keen on having these new rules. What concessions did they seek?
Exactly. It's always very difficult agreeing EU tax laws because they have to be agreed unanimously by all 27 member states. And in this case, there was one in particular that was pretty firmly opposed. It was Estonia, which is the home of Bolt, one of the ride-sharing companies that would be very affected by this measure. And it took a number of years of negotiation for them to lift their veto. And it seems that they got a couple of concessions that the rules won't apply until 2030, won't apply in full at least until 2030. Plus, there's an extra couple of carve-outs, exemptions that allow them to remove certain categories of small businesses from the tax.
And what impact is expected in terms of collection of VAT on the online economy?
Well, some estimates say there could be tens of billions in extra taxes collected as a result of this move. That was the Commission's original estimate. So most people will notice that in the form of higher prices, because it's likely that those extra taxes will be passed on to the customers of Airbnb, people buying holiday lettings or people getting an Uber. That's the immediate impact. We are going to have to see how individual member states implement these measures, because they have a number of years to do so and a number of different ways they might choose how to apply certain exemptions and so on.
Every year, around 1 trillion euros in VAT revenue is collected in the EU, making it a key source of budgets in the member states. It is also an important resource for the EU's collective budget, which received 22 billion euros in 2023 alone. Estimates suggest that 6 billion euros in VAT per year could be raised from platforms providing short-term rentals and ride-hailing services.
With us is Victoria Molnar, Secretary General of the European Holiday Home Association. Isn't it just fair that the online platforms collect and pay VAT just as traditional business do?
In our view, in the industry's view, we believe that it is unfair. And the deemed supplier regime, which is being introduced on online short-term rental platforms and also transportation platforms, we believe it does the opposite. It actually defeats the level playing field between the online short-term rental accommodation and the traditional businesses, hotels. It will, of course, increase the prices for the consumers. It will impose unfair obligations to online platforms, especially those which are doing business across the borders.
How it will impact the small owners that use the online platforms somehow to enhance their business?
So, in our view, these two categories, private people and exempt from VAT enterprises, which are offering short-term rental accommodation on online platform, they will be pushed in a disadvantaged position for the benefit of the traditional accommodation businesses, such as hotels. Why? Because the price will increase for the consumer, meaning that consumers will start searching for a cheaper accommodation options. And second, these two categories, private people and exempt from VAT enterprises, will have no right to deduct input VAT. So in other words, these two categories online will be treated as businesses, but actually without any business rights and privileges.
You will have some time to accommodate these new rules. They will become mandatory only in 2030. Is this enough for you to prepare?
We believe that it will cause extreme fragmentation for online platforms of any size and shape in the EU because they will eventually have to understand and adapt to 27 different deemed supplier regimes in member states. And adapting to these rules really requires a lot of time. It is not just pressing one button and online platforms will comply with it. It requires lots of resources, time, energy, financial resources to comply with such complex rules.
Short-term rental is currently accounted for around a quarter of touristic accommodations in the European Union. Ride-hailing is a commonplace across the bloc's countries. But by imposing VAT on these online businesses, does Europe risk killing the goose which lays the golden eggs? I'll be back next week for more EU decoding.